I can talk about the origin of Scoops. It started in my backyard back in 2017 with my 5-year-old son, Archer. I grew up playing the game. I grew up loving the game. I played at a high level in college. And when I was first born, you kind of say, well, you're playing the game of lacrosse, and he just didn't really want to. And I kept pushing it towards him, and he really had no interest in it. And finally, he'd throw his stick on the ground, and I'd throw my stick on the ground, and we'd walk off, and it was kind of a standoff. And one day I thought, well, wait a minute. This is the same kid that has to beat his younger brother up to the bathtub. He's very, very competitive. Something just wasn't making sense as to why he wasn't taking to the sport that I love so much. And so I went out, I bought some rainbow cones, and I put some balls under the cones. And I said, Arch, if you find the white ball, you get 1 point. If you find the yellow ball, you get a couple points. And why don't we just knock over the cones and throw it in the net, and we'll see how many points you get in 2 minutes. And he went off and he started knocking the cones out and scooping the balls and shooting them in pretty fast. And I could see that he was really into it. And at the end of it, he said, Dad, I think I can do better. Can I try again? And literally the same kid that was like, I hate this sport, I hate lacrosse, is now a day later saying, hey, I think I can do better. Can I do again? So I thought, hey, heck, if this might work on a 5-year-old stubborn, non-paying customer, it might work on some of his friends. And so I rented a facility and up in Cohasset, and 13 kids showed up, and 11 of them were family friends doing me a favor. But what was interesting is when I started teaching it, I fell in love with coaching at this really young age and trying to find a way to connect with these kids and find a way to make it really interesting and exciting and a place where they really want to show up and come to. And looked around the landscape of youth sports at the time, and it felt a lot different from when I grew up. When I grew up, we kind of went in our backyards and we played and we learned that way. And nowadays, it feels like a lot of pressure on these kids, and they're asking to be playing one sport, and they're doing multiple practices a week, and parents have to do a lot of travel and all these different things. And it just kind of didn't resonate with me. So I thought, well, heck, I got an opportunity to start something, design a program that's all about fun. We're just going to have a blast. We're going to make it such a party atmosphere that the kids want to show up. And that philosophy kind of lent itself to, wow, if you can teach a kid how to scoop a ground ball, you can also teach them to say thank you. So we started designing a program that was just all about the good things in life that you want your kids to be involved in, having fun, being polite, like all these different aspects of childhood development, and really looked at it as like physical literacy. That was pretty cool. That led to 13 kids, led to like 40 kids the next class, led to like 100 kids. I mean, it just started catching momentum across the South Shore. Towns started reaching out saying, hey, will you bring Scoops to us? We'd love to have you run our kindergarten program. And that just kind of kept growing and growing. We got to a point where now, if you look back at where we are now, we've had about 17,000 kids come through the program. We are in 45 towns in Massachusetts. That number keeps growing. And we entered the franchise world. Actually, I'll turn this over to Pete so he can kind of bring us in full circle, because
grew just organically for the first, from 2017 until 2023 or so. 2023, we realized like, hey, we're getting all these inbounds, started coming in from outside of Massachusetts, kind of our area of influence, just through social media and talking with folks in the lacrosse community, which is pretty small. And while it was really interesting and attractive to try to bring Scoops to Texas and California and Maryland and Long Island, we didn't feel as though we were really well equipped to do that with our current team. And so at that point, we'd experienced some pretty fast, significant growth, going from 12 classes in the fall of 2022 to almost 30 the following spring. We realized we could get this business up and running really quickly and well in terms of training our coaches and getting interest in new classes. And it wasn't just kind of a flash in the pan in the South Shore. This thing really could take hold in other parts of the state as well, in various communities. And so thought about it a lot and started talking to folks like SMB. Ultimately, I want to say it's 2025 now. So it was summer 2023 that we first started talking with Brian over SMB. He was fantastic, really just stood out to us. And so we got the whole process going with them. Fast forward to May 2024, we were ready to roll, ready to start selling franchises. And a couple months later in September, October, we added our first 2 in the Massachusetts, Boston area. We have 2 in Boston and a third out in California in the San Francisco area. And And so I think, that's where we're at now, just a little over a year into being eligible to start selling franchisees. And that's where we're at and hoping to add, 10 to 12 more in the next year or so. The decision to franchise and kind of how SMB helped us with that, I think one of the things we learned quickly and we're still learning is just the whole world of franchising is totally different. We've been running our own kind of company-owned locations here. We're in 45 plus towns, which means 45 plus locations and classes that we're running, but kind of documenting our business process and making that, ready to go for somebody totally new to our business is just a whole new challenge. And so the SMB folks were incredibly helpful with documenting that and putting it into a package that we could share with these new franchisees and get them up and running really quickly. Everything from technology, training, operations manuals, how we think about marketing, and really just thinking about all those little things that go into the success of our business, that we do those things without even thinking a lot of the times. But for somebody new, as a franchisee, what we're really trying to do is help them get to where we are far more quickly than it took for us to get to that 30, 40 locations, right? We want to be able to help them achieve that in a much more compressed time frame. And so the SMB folks, everybody, Joanne, Don, James, the whole crew was just incredibly, obviously knowledgeable, but even more so accessible to us. It was so easy talking with them, asking questions, even the really dumb ones. They were patient and helpful, knowledgeable, all the things you'd want from a partner and helping you get to that next stage. And so I felt like, if we had tried to do this totally on our own, I don't even know if we'd be where we are right now. We're so grateful for the guidance and advice that they've given us over time and continue to give us. They've just been fantastic and really feel like they're an extension of our team.
So initially, I think the competitor in me would say like finding franchisees and getting them to sign on to the business. I think that definitely was something that I naturally just was like, hey, let's go see if we can get some folks to do it. But if I take a step back or zoom out, I think what's actually the thing that's probably been the most rewarding is seeing some of these like pictures that these classes are putting up on social media where the kids are smiling, where the kids are like having a great time, where the lessons that like perhaps that I came up with that really resonate with the kids or the characters, the Fred Rogers approach of creating characters to teach kids something are now being implemented in as far as away as California. And just seeing the joy that this business has brought to kids that typically, or that probably wouldn't have it if they're just sticking in their traditional youth sports coaching and so forth like that. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable to think that something that started in the backyard as a dad failed now is bringing smiles and confidence to kids across the country. It makes me really happy. So that's definitely part of it. And the excitement, just to build on that, just the excitement that this has the opportunity to reach more kids in all different locations. And a big thing with Scoops is just making the kids feel really good about themselves and having a good time. So if I think about like there's an opportunity through franchising to do that, like I sleep really well at night. It makes me happy.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd add to that is just seeing the success of our franchisees. When we get up in the morning and kind of look through our reporting and see that their classes are growing and they're succeeding, that this is a business it's really fun. There's a great purpose behind it. And to be able to share that with our franchisees is incredibly rewarding and something that I hadn't even thought of. It has been a great kind of source of joy for us. Running the franchise business, it's a totally different business. We've been running Scoops since 2017, and we've got a pretty good rhythm that we're into. And what you don't realize is a lot of that is just second nature. You wake up and you do your things, and a lot of times you don't even think about it. But when you have other folks out there running their business, those things are not necessarily second nature to them. And so we have to make sure that we're spelling it out and we're giving them all those little touch points with their customers and their key stakeholders, and make sure that they know, because each one of those things is critical to the success of this business. And so documenting that, communicating it, being consistent, all of those things are not necessarily like, you don't realize how much you do that goes into the success of the business. But when you have to communicate that to others, you start to realize it. And there are just so many aspects of the franchising business that we're running now that didn't even occur to me at the start, whether it's how we communicate with our stakeholders to how we think about strategic planning for the business and meeting our goals and what those KPIs are that contribute to those goals. All of those things come together and are critical to the success of this business. And so sharing that with our franchisees and helping them kind of understand how it all fits into the bigger picture has been certainly eye-opening, but also incredibly rewarding. Our advice to other business owners considering working with SMB, first of all, like the team is fantastic. I have incredible confidence in recommending the folks at SMB to anybody else. And then in terms of my advice is ask them tons of questions. Think of them as an extension of your team. They're always available. They're always happy to help. And just ask questions upon questions upon questions, because there's so much in this franchising world that at least I didn't know, and I'm still learning, but you're not going to find a better resource than the folks over at SMB. And I think that's the key thing. Just ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask the silly ones that may seem totally obvious to everybody else that you think you should know already. It's totally fine. They understand it. They know they can sympathize with being at the early stages where you are, and they can explain it really well as if you're a 5-year-old just trying to get it for the first time. Bels, I don't know if you have anything to add here.
I agree with everything you said. It always felt like a family when you work with them. You know, it felt like everybody was part of something. And the thing that I kind of think about the most is that they always felt like they were rooting you on, like they were in your corner. You know, it wasn't just like hey, we hired you to help us launch this. It's more like, hey, we hired you, and now all of a sudden you're part of Scoops family just as much as we're part of the SMB family. Yeah, highly recommend, highly confident, just some great folks. We got to shout out Joanne, we got to shout out Don and Brian and James and Ed and Steve and everybody else that we work with. Sorry if we forgot some folks, but there's just so many people out there that in SMB that, you know, really took our concept and really believed in us. And it's nice to kind of feel validated that it wasn't just a business transaction.